Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Season 1 of the TV version of Building the Future is now streaming online at buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome to the show. Today we have Andrew from Andronium, makers of the Superbook. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Excited to be on the show.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing is really interesting. The funny thing to me is I kind of followed your original Kickstarter, and then, obviously I've been following your latest Kickstarter and how successful it is. But maybe before we kind of get into exactly what you guys are doing, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, sure. So originally born in Shanghai, but I grew up in a little town in Pennsylvania called Macungie.
Okay, so at what age did you move from China to America?
Around 6.5. Both my parents were engineers, and my dad came here to pursue his master's.
Got you. Okay, very cool. So you obviously went to high school. You went to university. What did you end up taking in university?
So I went to school. It's almost a little embarrassing now, but mostly for finance and economics. And then I spent a couple of years on Wall Street, picked up programming while I was working at a private equity fund,
okay,
and started building apps.
How did you come to pick up programming in the financial world?
Well, my dad, when I was younger, was, I guess, a little sadistic. Whenever I wanted to use a computer, I could only use it for learning programming. So I already had a little bit of kind of the basics of it. And I really got into web development because I had, when you're in a job that you don't really particularly love, you look for other ways to express your creativity and things that you want to do. So on weekends, I would learn how to program websites, and that led to developing a couple apps for the city of New York. And then I fell in love with the process of people, using something that you built. It was pretty addicting.
Sure. No, I totally get that. That's kind of why I love the industry, so I totally get that. So at what point did you kind of leave Wall Street and, kind of go into actually doing your own thing, and kind of how did your first kind of Kickstarter come to be?
Yeah, I mean, originally the idea, came from my co-founder Gordon was at Google, and wanted to do this as a 20% project within Google.
Gotcha.
And the company, of course, turned it down. They're really vested in building up their Chrome OS and Chromebook path. And the original Kickstarter that we put together really didn't do that well, partially because the product was a little bit limited. So we launched a dock at the end of 2014 that only worked with a couple phones. But outside of that, we kind of just put it on the internet and said, hey, check this thing out. It's kind of cool. But Kickstarter was mature enough, even at the end of 2014, that, if you didn't put preparation and work into your campaign, you wouldn't really get that much of a result.
Sure. Okay. No, that makes sense. So you guys put this on Kickstarter. You weren't funded, sadly. And then kind of what did you guys do once that campaign kind of ended?
Wallow in
Sure.
self-pity for a while. and then, to be honest, one of the best things that we gained out of the sales experience was a community of people that really loved what we were doing. We were able to continue sending messages to them, build a community, and we launched our app, our software, that allows any Android phone to turn into a kind of desktop interface. We built up, actually a pretty decent user base because people were just really excited about what we were doing, and spent the last year and a half, both building the Superbook product, but also honing that community, getting their feedback, and really figuring out what were the things that didn't make the first product as attractive. outside of that, at this time, we spent a lot of time preparing for the campaign. Everything from building up a mailing list to reaching out to folks, engaging our community, and really spending a lot of time making the campaign look good.
Sure. So, okay, you mentioned kind of building up a mailing list, but what else did you guys do to kind of prepare for your second Kickstarter?
Yeah, I mean, this time around, I would say we did a lot of things. We did everything from engaging in Reddit AMAs. So if you look at the Android community, which is that's our home, right?
Sure.
There's a community of people online that really, really love Android and love the things that you can do with the Android operating system. We put an AMA up. We also put up a few posts, and people were really willing to engage with us because we were excited about what we were doing. We also went out, we spoke to people, we ran some Facebook ads, and we tried to engage, I would say, the right people. And then finally, this time you'll notice our video looks a lot nicer than the last one.
Sure.
Because everyone knows Kickstarter, the video is probably the most important thing.
Sure. No, I totally agree. So you basically have, and I've tried it and I've played with it, you have an app that basically turns your phone into a full-blown OS, and you can kind of run Android apps and your apps kind of together, and then you can either cast to the TV or you can buy a cable to plug your phone into your TV, and then you Bluetooth a keyboard and mouse to actually use your Android app. And I think that's really cool, and I've been using it quite a bit actually, just at home and whatnot. But what I think is really, really cool and why I really wanted to have you on the show is the Superbook. So instead of me telling people what the Superbook is, what exactly is the Superbook?
Sure. So the Superbook is basically our response to our users hacking together their own configurations, as you mentioned, and going, well, this is kind of a hassle.
Sure.
Right? So what the Superbook is, it's a laptop shell. It turns your Android smartphone into a complete laptop. It has, 11.6-inch screen, keyboard, trackpad, a big old battery that can also charge your phone, as well as power the Superbook, and provides you with a plug-and-play solution so that you don't have to go through the hassle of hacking together a bunch of different things to use your smartphone as a laptop.
Sure, and I love that concept. Just for people that don't know, basically you plug your phone into almost like a dummy laptop shell, and then your phone powers your laptop, and it's from obviously you're on Kickstarter right now. You guys blew your goal out of the water within a few hours?
I think we hit our goal 10 minutes after our launch.
Right.
And then an hour in, we were over 300% funded. The response has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we weren't expecting it. In fact, when we originally launched it, we had this little checklist of, okay, here are all the things that we need to do. We need to reach out to these folks. We need to, send an email to these people. We need to launch on, Product Hunt or Reddit, get people excited, right after we launched. But we couldn't do any of that because immediately we had to respond to a ton of questions and messages on Kickstarter. We were so overwhelmed by the whole thing. The first day was definitely extremely unexpected.
Yeah, and just for the people listening, you guys asked for $50,000, and you're days into the campaign, and you're almost at $1.5 million, and you'll probably hit that closer today. I have the Kickstarter up as we're talking right now, and the number keeps growing, the backers keep growing, you have 17 days left to go, which is, crazy. And you just mentioned how many comments you've had to write to. There's over 2,100 comments, right? So this has been a huge success for you guys. And I think for me, I've been looking for something like this for a long period of time, and I haven't given any money because actually my credit card got hacked and not hacked. Sorry, it got compromised, and I'm waiting for a new credit card in the mail. But I've been looking for this, and the fact that you guys you basically are turning my smartphone into a laptop I love that idea, right? And I think it's super cool because most people nowadays don't really need a full-blown laptop, and you guys are doing this for $99, correct? Or that's kind of the goal?
Yeah, $99, and I think most people nowadays they'll use their smartphones for, 80, 90% of the main computing things they need to do, right?
Totally.
Browsing the internet, watching videos, taking photos, all that stuff. And really the things that you end up using your laptop for are honestly the same things that most people do, like browsing the internet, watching like larger form videos, really anything that has to do with, either productive learning work or for entertainment. And simply what we wanted to provide was that experience where you can extend all of the apps and data that you already have on your phone, but just in that larger, more convenient form factor, and of course take it out of the mobile interface and move it towards one that people are very familiar with.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And people can go to getsuperbook.com. Right now it redirects to your Kickstarter campaign, but you did have a website up, and I'm assuming that once the Kickstarter campaign's over, you'll go back to that website, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been again this whole process. We are not Kickstarter pros. Sure. Although now people are reaching out to us asking for advice, but really all we did was we went to a lot of the people in the Internet Network that knew a lot about the process and took all of their advice, because we're again filled once and we're kind of very new to this. But one of the things advice, of course, was just redirect it directly to the campaign page. That's the only thing that matters during this process.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. So I'm curious then, let's kind of get into exactly what the Superbook can do, just for the listener. Like, I understand you plug your phone into this laptop shell, you get this interface that it looks like a desktop interface, but what exactly can people kind of do with the Superbook? Sure.
So, on a Superbook, you really can do pretty much everything that you already can do on your smartphone,
okay.
Except with a larger interface. So you can use pretty much every single Android app that you have. You have access to the Play Store. We have a couple native apps ourselves, like a really nice desktop-class browser, media players, of course. But you can do pretty much anything, writing documents, like Microsoft Office apps work on the Superbook. So you can, work on spreadsheets, PowerPoint, whatnot. You can code on the Superbook. In fact, we were, just for fun, coding some parts of Andromium directly on the Superbook. And, everything from playing games to, watching movies, it basically extends, think of it as a pure extension of your existing smartphone. And then, because of the technology that we work with, we use a display conversion chip called DisplayLink.
Okay.
It also works with many other computers that you might have. So, we have a video of this on our campaign page. But you can plug the Superbook into a Windows tablet, say a Surface, and it turns it into an instant dual-screen laptop. You can actually plug it into a headless PC or one of those PC sticks and have a working laptop with the PC stick. Same thing with regular laptops as well. So it's kind of like a neat utility tool for kind of extending whatever computer you have. However, our primary use case is being able to turn Android smartphones into the complete laptop solution.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And the thing that I think is interesting to me about what you guys are doing as well is you guys have modified the keyboard to work with Android, where, obviously you can Bluetooth a keyboard and mouse to Android. That's not new. That's been around for a long period of time. But you don't really know which keys are what, right? You kind of have to figure that out. And you guys have kind of solved that problem as well.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think so a lot of people have said to us, well, I can get the same thing if I cast my phone onto a larger screen. I use a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard. What makes the Superbook unique? And one of the things that is obvious the second that you use a Bluetooth and casting configuration versus everything that's pure USB is that there's no lag.
Yeah, totally.
You use our product and it just works. It doesn't take. There's no lag on the screen. There's no lag in the input. And on our keyboard, we've actually made custom Android buttons. So your home, your navigation, your back button are all there, mapped directly to what you're familiar with on your Android device.
Sure, that makes sense. And I think the other thing to kind of mention again is you're basically using your data or your Wi-Fi or whatnot from your phone. Correct?
Yeah, yep. You have access to the Bluetooth, the Wi-Fi, the data that's already on your phone. You don't have to tether. So, people with tethering limitations on their phone plans don't have to worry because essentially it runs off the phone.
Right.
You have all of the flexibility of your mobile phone with the form factor of the laptop.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to clarify that. So when can I get one, or when do you guys plan on shipping these to your backers?
Yeah, so we aren't able to start production until we know the final numbers.
Sure.
So that should be at the end of August. And the goal is to get everyone their Superbook by February, with some early backers getting theirs by late January.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then I'm assuming once you get all your backers, then you'll kind of go on sale to the general public, for lack of a better term?
Yep. Obviously right now, juggling a lot of things, but one of the things that we want to make sure we provide is a good retail option as well.
Sure.
So putting it on e-commerce sites and making it available to all consumers.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious to know, walk me through a little bit of the prototyping stage for this thing, because I'm assuming obviously you basically created something out of nothing. You had to, probably find some existing components, but it sounds like you had to kind of make your own, or at least kind of conceptualize building this prototype, because nobody's kind of really done this before. So you obviously had to kind of come up with some new components yourself.
A lot of the stuff that we worked with were off-the-shelf parts.
Okay.
It's really just a new configuration of it and figuring out how to work with a fairly newer technology. The one thing that makes, I would say, our product unique. And by the way, laptops have been made for forever. They're large manufacturers, contract manufacturers for laptops. The one thing that's kind of unique about us is using DisplayLink, which again allowed all this to happen over USB.
Right.
It does require some, Android as common as it's supposed to be, still runs into a lot of fragmentation issues. So
Yep.
we've had to do a lot of work to make sure it works with all modern Android devices. And that, I think, the little bits of testing and making sure the software works throughout most environments probably was the hardest part.
Oh, interesting. Not even the hardware. Interesting.
Well, the hardware was hard.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong. Hardware has a unique, fragile. If you plug in the wrong thing at the wrong time, there goes $1,500 of components that you just paid for, which has happened once.
Okay.
But in software, I would say the software probably is the biggest challenge here, because when you think about it, the technology for displaying information from your phone does exist to one sort or another. And the biggest thing that I think has been missing is just a really great software experience. Honestly, when we want to port over a laptop environment from our phone, we expect a lot. I mean, we expect the same kinds of performance that we get off of a regular laptop.
No, that totally makes sense. So maybe walk me through a little bit of how did you, what exactly is the software? Is it Linux? What is it exactly kind of in the back end?
On the back end, Andromium is, I would say it's almost like a new classification of apps for Android. It's a OS extender.
Okay.
Essentially what it does is it kind of wraps around your existing Android operating system, provides you with, some enhanced capabilities. It still runs a lot off of the existing capabilities of your phone, but just gives it things like, a new form factor to feed your apps in. Our SDK allows you to do things like, have apps that open in multi-window mode, resizable and scaling for apps, as well as things like, having a notification center, a taskbar, being able to search for things. I think a lot of those things are inherently somewhat possible within Android, but just not put together in a way that makes it really, really convenient. And of course, we add a bunch of additional capabilities on top.
Got you. Okay. So right now, if people want to try out Andromium, they just go to the Google Play Store, search for it, install it like an app, and then just launch it, and then they can play with it, and it works okay on a phone. I have a Nexus 6P, and it runs fine on there. But the real power of it is actually connecting it to a TV, either if you want to try it like today, you connect it to the TV or you can cast it to your TV. I've tried both. Both work, fine. And then you just keep Bluetooth a keyboard and mouse to it, and you can play around with it, right? And that's kind of how I've played with it right now, and I'm looking forward to actually getting one of your Superbooks and actually playing with it that way, right? Because I think that's where the real power is with your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, we've played with our own software both before we had the hardware and after. And having the tightness of USB makes all the difference in the world. Like any lag in a desktop or a laptop environment, you'll notice that.
Sure.
And that's what we're trying to avoid.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And so you kind of mentioned you guys have an SDK, and you kind of covered a little bit about what that is. But what else are you guys kind of doing for developers that kind of want to get involved in the project?
Yeah, obviously the SDK is really important. We want to let Android developers be able to have a really lightweight library they put into their own apps to make it work really well, both with Andromium, but also, I think one of the capabilities that our library provides is it actually makes it really easy to port your app over or get it ready for Android N. And Android N provides, Nougat provides a lot of additional functionality that I think most app developers, one, are going to love, but two, are not going to enjoy because they have to do a lot of work to take advantage of them. I think that's part of where we come in. Additionally, we've been having preliminary conversations with app developers and software companies that really love the idea of building in functionality directly into the desktop. So, this is a little bit more conceptualized, but imagine the future where, if you are a freelancer, right? If you're a remote worker that does design work or does, software development work, and you take small contracts, having those jobs appear right in your desktop.
Oh,
not having to
interesting.
open it, not having to do much, and having those jobs linked to the right software.
Sure.
Right? And for the data that you need to get started to go directly from your desktop to the software application and open up automatically, so you don't have to do all of the logistical setup work, bidding for jobs or getting all the stuff that I think most people that are knowledge workers, most people that are contractors actually really hate doing. We want to make that process, potentially we can make that process really, really tight by having an experience that's kind of wholly owned directly within the desktop interface.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. So other than kind of working with developers to improve the platform, where do you guys kind of see this going? Because, you're obviously in the hardware space, and then with Andromium, you're in the kind of software space. So, where do you kind of see this going?
Yeah, that's a really great question that, we've talked about in many different ways. What we hope in the future we're trying to build is one where everyone has a personal computer, right? They have their smartphone. It's the one computer that they upgrade regularly, as new technology comes out. It's the one computer that is kind of that point of connection to everything. And we're building a series of, peripherals that help make your smartphone a lot more than it currently is. And whether that's both on the hardware side of providing things that you can kind of attach your smartphone into, right? Kind of like buying an external monitor for your laptop, or what have you. But also on the software side, we want to build the software that allows your operating system to fit your life and your purpose, right? Rather than the other way around. I think that's what's happening right now is people are trying to get their mobile phones to kind of work with their configurations or their needs. We want to get to the point where the operating system is simply something that enhances your particular situation.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think the other thing, too, is your probably biggest competitor is almost the Chromebook, and you're cheaper than the cheapest Chromebook, and the cheapest Chromebook is garbage, in my opinion. But the thing that's really interesting about what you guys are doing is I think not everybody right now, and I've interviewed people on the show that talk about this, is part of the problem is in homes, especially maybe in poorer neighborhoods or whatnot, is they probably have a cell phone or a smartphone in the home, but they don't have, a tablet or a laptop or something to really enjoy or fully get the internet on a big screen. And I think your guys' product is affordable enough that you guys can really make a huge dent in kind of the education space within kind of North America and beyond. And I also think even in kind of other countries outside of North America where the only way they connect to the internet is through their phone, right? And you're basically giving them an external keyboard and monitor that happens to be in a laptop form factor where they could access content through their smartphone on a big screen. And I think you guys are solving a real problem outside in North America, and in North America, but I think you will probably see a lot of growth outside of North America in kind of emerging markets, because I think they've been crying for exactly what you guys are doing. And I think people have taken cracks at this, but the fact that you're leveraging Google's infrastructure and App Store is huge, and nobody's done this before.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're really excited about that. I think the affordability of it, I think leveraging their existing smart content, and most people, until you step out into the developing world, you don't realize just how much people rely on their smartphones and how many of them are Android devices. I mean, we're in markets where pretty much 100% of the devices are Android-based. And, some of them are pretty powerful, some of them are not quite as much, but they can all do so much more than, the laptops and computers that most people have access to, which is extremely, extremely limited. And, one of my favorite things that we did with this campaign, working with the Nelson Mandela School Library Project, to be able to provide donations of the superbook directly to pilot schools in South Africa.
That's
and,
awesome.
They have so many donations of smartphones, right? And there's so many smartphones now that it's really easy to be able to donate them. But for a kid, who's learning things, who's engaging with content, looking at things on a small screen and trying to use, I would say just be limited to touch on what you can do is so incredibly limiting. And we're really, really excited to be able to essentially provide the missing key to be able to access a lot more in that educational environment.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think that's one thing that I think a lot of people, kind of like you mentioned, forget about, right? Is that not everybody can afford the latest, greatest smartphone, never mind even a laptop, right? And I think you guys are kind of bridging that gap, and I love that. And I would assume that at some point you might build a touchscreen version.
Yeah, that's one of the, as I mentioned, the last time we did our Kickstarter, we got a lot of feedback on what people really want, right?
Sure.
Or what features people requested. And touchscreen was the number one request that we got. We heard everything from make it larger, make the battery life last a lot longer,
Sure.
Add backlit keys. But touchscreen seems to be the thing, and we totally understand that too. By the way, we wanted to be able to provide a product that was affordable, and so for $99, touchscreen was out of the equation.
Sure.
But we think about our audience, and we think about our audience growing up mobile first and touch first. We're definitely going to add it in a future version of the product. Yeah,
and I could definitely see you guys even going with a few versions, right? You have like a base model that's not touchscreen, and then maybe you have a bigger screen, and then maybe you have a bigger screen with touch. I don't know. There's a million combinations, right? And I think you guys are pretty early on in this. You're only like a couple weeks in from this thing being obviously probably way more successful than you guys thought it would be. I'm sure you thought it would be successful, but you couldn't have realized that you guys wanted 50,000 and now you're almost at 1.5 million. There's no way you guys could have predicted that it was going to be as successful as it's been. So, obviously, somebody like myself or others can throw out, I would love to have touch or this and that, but you guys set a price point, a very affordable price point. You put it out there, and you can build other versions of the hardware, once you guys meet this first kind of round.
That's absolutely right. And our team, I'm off to China tomorrow because we are, dedicated to making sure that this comes out correct.
Sure.
This comes out on time, and this comes out as a quality product that people are really going to enjoy.
Sure. And the other thing too is, like, I have a Chromebook Pixel, and it's obviously touchscreen, and until Android apps, and I know they're rolling out to Chromebooks right now, but I never use the touchscreen. And unless you build kind of a touchscreen that you can bend almost like totally flat, it's still not there yet, right? So I think in theory, people think touchscreen is fantastic, but until kind of OS and apps actually catch up and actually make them touchscreen kind of friendly, for lack of a better term, it sounds better than it actually is in reality. And so I think the fact that you guys didn't do that right now, I still think we're about a year out from, Android kind of supporting touchscreen on a large screen actually properly. We're probably about a year out. So I think, people might want it, but I think the timing for when if you guys roll out a touchscreen in 2017, I think people are going to be a lot more happy then than if you did it today anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right on point. I think when we were evaluating what we wanted to include. By the way, touchscreen is totally doable. It's not a matter of whether it's possible. It's really just a matter of what is the right amount of features to include in a product at what price. And certainly, I can imagine us very quickly in the next year putting out a touchscreen based product. But you're absolutely right. Like, if there's no good use case for touchscreen, if our product's not designed to be, essentially used like a tablet, or there are apps that, work better with touchscreen, there's no need for us to put it in right now. However, that being said, a lot of people have now suggested, hey, a touchscreen would be great if I wanted to use this for, let's say, at a hospital or in a manufacturing site. And we can certainly see the purpose for it. We hope to be able to introduce a lot more in the future.
No, I think that's great, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But I also think that's kind of why I brought it up is I think that's almost like a good thing to kind of stress to people is you didn't include everything that people requested because of a number of reasons, right? And I think that's super important, that it doesn't need to have every bell and kind of whistle as version 1, right? And I think we often make that mistake kind of on the software side and the hardware side, where we try to cram so much into something, and then obviously we have to sacrifice something. Either it's more money, or it takes more time, or it's not as good as it could be. Where I love what you guys are doing is you're focused. You cut some things that some people might want today, but you guys were just like, maybe we'll roll that out into a version 2 of this thing. And I think that's super important. And not a lot of people, I think people are starting to get it, but people still kind of struggle with where to cut the feature set, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that also is, it's we don't want to obviously spend a lot of our time telling our users our backers about the complexities of manufacturing,
sure,
the trade-offs that we have to make. We try to share it as much as we can. But yeah, obviously, for us, and especially for a startup, the more that we try to bite off, the harder it will be to chew.
Sure. And you mentioned you're going to China tomorrow. So I'm curious to know, for people that have never been and never kind of been through the hardware process, like, what exactly are you going to be doing there to kind of get the Superbook ready for kind of mass production? Because I understand you have prototypes and you have a physical copy yourself, but what exactly are you going to be doing while you're in China?
A lot of vendor visits, manufacturing, contract manufacturer visits. We have we have a couple contract manufacturers lined up, so we want to make sure that everything looks good. And there's no substitute to building a good relationship with the people that you're working with, as well as checking out, what are the things you could be doing. And quite frankly, one of the hardest parts about manufacturing overseas is being able to be in touch with the process and expect things, early before they go wrong. That's one of the things we want to make sure doesn't happen in this process. We can deliver a quality product on time to our backers.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. So how did you find a manufacturer in China? Did you know somebody, or how did you kind of go about that process?
We reached out to, we didn't know anyone. To be perfectly honest, we're really, really poorly connected in terms of contract manufacturers. We just reached out to a lot of people, that made laptops, got a lot of people to respond, engage with them a lot. And right now we're actually using a firm, Dragon Innovation, which has helped a lot of hardware Kickstarters and hardware companies go through the manufacturing process. We're doing so much right now: software, hardware, developer community building, and of course support for the Kickstarter campaign, such that any support that we can get from an experienced hand that's done this, multiple times, we'll gladly take.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show. Do you want to maybe kind of close the show with, again, maybe just quickly summarizing exactly what the Superbook is and where they can go support the Kickstarter?
Yeah, absolutely. We're Andromium. We make the Superbook. It's a laptop shell that turns your Android smartphone into a complete laptop solution. You can find us either on the website at getsuperbook.com or on Kickstarter and search for Superbook.
Andrew, thanks again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be on the show. I look forward to following the rest of the campaign and actually getting one of these in my hands, and have a great trip in China, and I hope we can keep in touch while you're there and kind of once you're back. And I love the product and what you guys are doing, and I think it's much needed.
Kevin, thanks for having me on the show. This is great, and absolutely, we'll definitely keep you in touch, and hopefully you can get your hands on one soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. All right, well, we'll talk soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com. And keep building the future.